Hi, all dairy-free lady here. Today I'm going to show you how to make these delicious dairy-free biscuits. For our biscuits, the first thing I do is I take my dairy-free milk and I add 1 teaspoon of lemon juice. So I'm going to let that sit for a few minutes while I add my 1 teaspoon of salt. And I just have 2 cups of flour in this bowl. Next, we're going to add our 2 tablespoons of baking powder. And I'm just going to take a whisk and I'm going to whisk that together. Next, I'm going to get my butter, which has been chilling in the refrigerator, and I'm using about 3/4 cup of a non-dairy butter alternative. Kind of chopped it into different chunks, and I would say this is about a 3/4 cup of non-dairy butter. I'm going to add that chilled butter, and the secret to this is keeping your butter nice and cold before you add it. So now I'm going to take my pastry cutter and I'm going to cut into the mixture, and I'm going to do this until it's kind of like breadcrumbs. So you want a crumb mixture. You're working that butter into flour. Now you could do this in a food processor if you want, but I just find that this gives you a little more control over the consistency. So when it starts to get crummy or look like little balls are forming is when you can stop. Okay, so now that we have our mixture looking more like crumbs, we're going to add a little bit of the non-dairy milk, and we want to just put a little bit at a time because you may not need all of this. So I'm going to add a little bit just to see how sticky this gets. And you can always add more if it's too dry, so it's better to err on the side of caution and just add a little bit at a time. So I'm going to add a little bit more. So if yours looks too dry, just go ahead and add a little bit more of milk until it gets to a sticky consistency. And sometimes you just got to get your hands in it. It's the easiest way to do it. And this will be sticky, but don't worry about that because you're going to fix that in a minute. Okay, so now that this is somewhat sticky, we're going to get it to a floured surface to get our biscuits cut out. Okay, so we have our floured surface ready to go. Now we're going to take our dough, and you can see it's very sticky. Sometimes, depending on the humidity in the air, the amount of milk you will use will be more or less. So you're just going to kind of get this flour incorporated. You want to kind of try to shape this into a rectangular shape just with your hands. I try not to work the dough too much. So when you have this in somewhat of a rectangular shape, you can fold it over. You want to pat it down a little bit more. And then I kind of make it into a circle at this point, or somewhat of a circle. You want to keep your dough thick. You don't want it too thin. I try to keep it about at least 1 inch thick, sometimes thicker, depending on how many biscuits I want or how thick I want my biscuits to be. I kind of like my biscuits thicker. And then I start cutting out my biscuits. So you can just form this back together. I can usually get anywhere from 8 to 10 biscuits out of this. The key to making biscuits is keeping everything cold. So I'm going to put all of these biscuits on a pan, on a cookie sheet, and then I'm going to put those in the refrigerator for about 15 minutes. So our biscuits have been chilling in the refrigerator for about 15 minutes while the oven is preheating on 425. We're going to cook these for approximately 12 minutes in our 425-degree oven. Here are our dairy-free biscuits fresh out of the oven. They're delicious and fluffy. And be sure to like and subscribe for more dairy-free recipes. Check out the link below for a printable recipe.